you? How do you feel like you've been able to stay in the industry and still be successful?
Relationships. This is a relationship business. I think we have so many brands, there's so much competition, and everyone's always trying to outdo each other, which is great because it all keeps us on our toe to be, and deliver this great product experience for guests. That part is amazing. And then you have relationships when
Hello, Empower Nation. Welcome to Empower Her Money podcast. I'm your host, Angela Duncan, speaker, best-selling author, serial entrepreneur. We talk all things money and business. Today's episode, I get to interview Janet Bava. She is with Windstar Cruises, which is a luxury cruise line. We're going to talk about thinking outside of the box, how innovation plays into business, and she's going to give some incredible tips to any travel agents out there to help them build their business. Hi, Janet. Welcome to Empower Her Money podcast.
Thank you for having me, Angela.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I reached out to you. You said yes. You also had an incredible article and feature in Success Magazine that I had the chance to read. Loved your story, and I'm glad you said yes to be on the podcast today. So thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to share that story here.
Yeah, so I would love for you to first kind of share your background, your story. I know you're doing incredible things right now, but would love for the audience to get to know you first.
Yeah, so I am Cuban-born immigrant now for several years. I left Cuba when I was 2 years old, so I have no memory or recollection of that. But I grew up in Miami. And for those of you who have been in Miami, it's, kind of like a little mini Latin America country within the US. And so, it was great to kind of grow up in that melting pot that is Miami. Miami is also the cruise capital of the world. So I think there's no doubt in my mind that I think when I grew up in this amazing city, surrounded by amazing people from all over the world, I think that's where my travel bug began. And, very early on, my parents, who were not wealthy, but, they did any kind of spare money they had, they invested in traveling. They love to travel. My father and mother right now are in Medellin, Colombia. They continue to travel even at an older age. And so we truly believe that travel is a force of good. And so early on, I was exposed to cruising. And the first time that I went on a cruise, I was 15 years old. I celebrated my quinceañera cruise on board a cruise ship. And I left there thinking, oh my gosh, this is what I want to do. I want to, travel the world, and I want to work in the travel industry. I want to work in the cruise industry. And so I studied marketing and international business in Florida International University in South Florida. As a Hispanic Latina, I didn't go too far from home. It's very close to my family. I remained close to my family, even though I actually left my hometown when I became an adult, not for college. But I think, really entering into the cruise world early on, right after college, and growing up in the cruise space has really, I think, helped me not only accomplish my career goals by also my personal goals of traveling the world. But what I love most at this time is that I get to help others, whether that's my team that reports to me and growing their profession and growing their career and what their passion is. And a lot of that is in travel, but also helping others like the travel advisor community, which is made up of a lot of females. And whether they are older in life or younger in life, they're starting their career in travel, and I get to help them grow their business. And that to me is where I am right now, helping others. And it's very fulfilling, and it's an amazing place to be at that I never thought or imagined I would be.
Yeah, let's talk about that last part. So I was on a cruise in, I think it was January, February this year, and the lady who booked it was for a mastermind, which I think is very popular here in Miami, is to go on a cruise and have a business expense. But her name was Joyce, and the amount of work that I feel like she had to put into not only coordinating everything, but now talk about how you help maybe a female entrepreneur, a female travel agent, and help her in her business.
Yes, I love that. So traveling can be complicated, can seem complicated and daunting, especially if you have to, travel and get on an airplane and travel internationally, get your passport, figure out the visas. If it's a cruise, what are the tours? What are you going to do? The hotel? There's so much complexity to travel. And so there's an entire profession that's the travel advisor community, and it's been around for so many years and decades. And so people who have a love and passion for travel are, have been getting into the space and making a lot of money off the space. But as the world of technology has come into play, as the World Wide Web took over, as there's a lot more opportunities for people to book travel direct, right? Travel advisors have been fighting for their space and their value within the community of travelers. And I think they've done a phenomenal job. And so where I've helped them is, how do they complement the world that exists today, which is consumers are going online and they have so much information at their disposal, so many emails coming in from brands, social media, different choices. So what they're doing is matching the right product, right, the right experience to their clientele. And that's something that AI is trying to do right now, but they're doing it in a very mediocre way. If if you're spending anywhere between $5,000 to $10,000 on a vacation, which is the average vacation these days for two people, that's an investment. And you want to be able to work with somebody who you trust, who knows you, who are asking the right question. And it's not just a transaction, but you're building an authentic relationship with someone. And that is a service that, just like I go to my insurance broker, I go to my travel advisor to make sure that investment that I make in my travel, I'm making the right choices and I'm going to have a fabulous time, that I don't go on that trip and then, have some regrets in terms of the choices that I made. And so what I'm working on today is helping them build not only their confidence, but helping them build their skills on how they can create an online presence for themselves. How can they generate the right leads online through social media, testimonials, showing the value of their service, of what they're offering their clients, why, people need to be using them to book their travel all over the world. And so that's where I'm spending my time right now. And not only that, but working with my team. I work with Windstar Cruises. I oversee marketing team, a sales team, a reservations team. And so I actually just got off the phone right now with this team, talking to them about what is the content that's going to resonate, right? We're not just selling a cruise, we're selling an experience, and we had to trigger emotions, whether that's from the guests that are going to sail with us to know that they're, we're going to take care of everything for them, to the travel advisors who sell us, that know that we're going to be easy to do business with and that we're going to provide value to them, provide them the access that they need, the information that they need to sell our cruises and be successful in what they do.
Very nice. Now, Windstar, for the audience that maybe hasn't heard of them, because they're not like a Carnival or Royal Caribbean, can you talk about the difference and why Windstar's, above and beyond those other brands?
Yes. So what's fascinating from the cruise industry, which I've been in this industry now for 20 years, is, how many different types of cruises there are for different people. So there is a cruise for everyone. Usually though, when, people think about cruise, they think about these big, massive ships. And of course, these brands that are coming out with the largest ship in the world are spending a lot of advertising dollars to create awareness for the cruise industry, which is great. But that's not the only type of cruising there is. In fact, Windstar Cruises is celebrating 40 years in existence. They have the iconic sailboats that have only 150 passengers. Our largest sailboat has 350 passengers, right? That's a lifeboat on one of these mass market cruise lines. And then we have these yachts. We have motor yachts. We have 3, and we've just acquired 2 more. And the maximum capacity there are 314 guests. So these are smaller ships that can go to destinations that the bigger ships can't go to. It's a more intimate experience on board. So from the dining and the cuisine to the personalized service you have on board, to the community that's created by the people that are on board, like-minded individuals that want to explore the world in an intimate setting, but high quality dining and, still have a lot of the amenities that a large cruise ship has, the pools, the spas, the gyms, the specialty dining restaurants. And the value is incredible because, we have not only a great price point, but everything is included. And so you're not kind of, nickel and dimed while you're on board trying to spend money in addition to what you paid to get on board the ship. And that's a huge value. That's a different experience that I think because, people do try cruising and they love the fact that you only unpack once and see multiple countries and destinations, but maybe they don't want to be with 4,000, 8,000 people on board. They prefer to be with 300 on board and go to destinations where you don't have a massive amount of people getting off a ship at one time, right? It's a seamless experience, and it becomes a floating hotel, and ability for you to explore more, right, of the destination. And so I think also our itineraries, we have a lot of more overnights in destinations. So you're not just restricted by arriving at a certain time and being only 4 hours in a port. We have destinations where we're staying minimum 6, 7, 8 hours, and sometimes overnight. So if you're going to Rome, like we offer, we're only one of the few cruise lines that offer sailing in Europe during fall and winter. So Rome, the port in Rome can have, over 20 ships during the summer months, lots of people coming in and out of that port. When you're sailing in November and December, we're probably the only ship or maybe another ship. So you only have 300 people, navigating through that port. It's easy to get a cab. It's easy to get on the train, go to city center. So it just becomes a different experience that I think for the traveler today that's not looking for a lot of crowds, but they're looking for, to do more and see more in a more relaxed and enjoyable way. I think that's where Windstar Cruises really sets itself apart.
Wow, I'm sold. Let's go. Just kidding.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Everyone here is invited to sail.
Yes, I
Explore
love
more.
I love cruises for many of the things that you said. When I'm on vacation, I don't want to necessarily have to plan everything. I definitely want to cook. I don't want to clean my room. I just want to go to one place, unpack, and then be able to see many things from that, one vacation. And in comparison to some other things that you might do, it's relatively inexpensive or similar in price too. So I love cruises. So you've been in the industry for a while. You mentioned about 20 years. And I imagine it's a difficult industry. Things are often changing. So talk about you. How do you feel like you've been able to stay in the industry and still be successful?
Relationships. This is a relationship business. I think we have so many brands. There's so much competition, and everyone's always trying to outdo each other, which is great because it all keeps us on our toe to be, and deliver this great product experience for guests. That part is amazing. And then you have relationships when things go sour that you get to call a friend in another brand and say, how are you guys addressing this? I want to mention the COVID years that impacted the cruise industry so much, right? I think they were really badly targeted for many reasons. And sometimes, I feel it was unfair, and sometimes maybe fair, but mainly unfair. And so you call a friend, and it was a time period when everybody was kind of suffering in the cruise industry. And I think we lifted each other up. The relationships that we have to build when things are maybe, we need to drive awareness that we now have a ship in Europe all year round. The reason why we have that ship in Europe year round was because we were slated to sail in the Middle East. The war breaks out last year, and now, we need to get away from the Red Sea as quickly as possible and go to, somewhere where passengers and guests are going to feel a little bit safer and more confident to travel to. And so now we have all of this capacity. We're calling upon our top travel partners in the industry, our friends, what we call friends in the industry, to tap into the relationships that we have to help us generate awareness and move business and drive business to where we need it. So, as difficult as this may be, it's a very, I call it an incestuous industry, because we have a lot of executives that have moved different brands, or even executives that have been in brands for a very long time. And so everybody knows each other. And I think everyone is looking for each other to rise. All tides rise, literally, in the cruise industry. And so I love that part of it. I love that even in the most challenging day that we may have coming into the office, quote unquote, because most of us are remote, even in the most challenging times, that that you can call a friend for support, whether that's a competitor, that's a travel partner, that's a friend in the media space, that's a guest. Sometimes it's our guest, who love our brand and see something, and they're calling the executive to say, hey, you know what, this is happening, and how do you want to address this? Instead of, making it public, they're having a private conversation with us and allowing us to address it. And so, challenges are inevitable, right? And things go wrong. We're human. We're trying to, drive a perfect product delivery. But when things go wrong, it's how you handle the challenge. And I think those relationships that we have, our crew on board, et cetera, really help us navigate the challenging times. And I think that's the beauty of the cruise industry, how I see it.
Yeah. And I think it's similar to many industries. You have to be able to pivot, you have to be able to innovate, you have to kind of think about what's best for your clients. But I also watched, I think it was on Netflix, it was a show about, cruise ships and how you unload and load not only the people, but everything that needs to go, food, toiletries, and everything like that, and how like smoothly it looked like it went. But I'm sure, many years of trial and error had to come before creating a system like that.
Absolutely. The operations side, like I've always been on the commercial sales marketing side at the corporate level, but the operations of the crew and what happens on that ship, it is fascinating. It's not only fascinating from a large ship, right? Like those are just what happens there is just another level, but even on the smaller ships, because we're also locally sourcing food. So where maybe mass market ships are, sourcing from one source or what have you, we're small enough that we can source from local venues. So if we're in Tahiti, the French Polynesia, we're sourcing there locally for fresh fruit products, especially things that are in season for our fresh food, fruits and vegetables, right? They can't come from too far. The same thing when you're in Europe, and that's the difference between, sailing in Europe seas and round. Obviously what you experience in the destination will be different from a culinary experience, but what you experience on board as well. And part of that logistics and that changing and the menus on board, bringing the right product, there's a lot of dietary restrictions. There's a lot of also from a sustainability perspective, right? We have to sustain, sometimes 2, 3, 5, 10 days of being at sea. And, how do you do that successfully without creating waste, but also being able to deliver, a 5-star premium experience on board that, palate pleasing for guests who want to dine well, even the 5 days at sea. So it's a really great operation. It's incredible. And actually I've learned a lot with our president, Christopher Prelog, who used to work on board the ships. In fact, the majority of our operations team, shoreside at corporate level, has worked on board the ship. And I think that's one of the unique differentiators from Windstar as well, as why we deliver such a great product. Because sometimes, as you know, in any industry, there may be a disconnect from corporate and maybe the individual restaurants or franchisees, there's a disconnect in terms of how things operate, and maybe a decision that's made at corporate impacts how things operate on board the ship. And I think one of the things that we do really well is that they think through. Can't give myself credit because it's all the operations team. They really think through the decisions that we're making on shore side at corporate, and how does that impact this incredible operation of bringing guests, embarking them and debarking them every 7 days, and making sure they have an exceptional time and they're dining well and they have everything that they need while they're on board.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Now, you've been in the industry for a little bit. I would love to hear what your thoughts are of where you think the industry is going to go in the future. I've seen cruises 180 days, 365 days, which seems like a really long time to be on a boat, but some people might like that. But I would love for you to kind of share where your thoughts, where the industry might be heading in the future.
So I'll tell you about the trends that we're seeing, and then what my vision is of what I think will happen. So one of the trends we're seeing is exactly what you hit the nail on the head on, which is longer journeys. Historically, prior to COVID, you would have these world cruises, 120 days, 300 days, but it was usually when you came on board, it was retirees, people who had the time and money because they had retired, and now they can spend 120 days on board, which, by the way, you said it, when you have laundry included, all your food, you don't have to pay your housekeeper to make your bed, or clean your house, because that's all being done for you. Oh, and plus you get to visit different countries every day or every week. That becomes, a huge value for someone who's retired. It becomes sometimes even cheaper than staying back home, and going out to a restaurant. And so you had that already happening in the cruise industry. Fast forward post-pandemic, you're having a generational shift in mindset. And that is, people our age, Gen Xers, millennials, they're not waiting to retire to take that epic trip. They're not waiting to retire or in their 60s to invest time in traveling. And also they're working remote. And so all these ships, we have Starlinks across, our fleet. And so people are working remote. They're combining working remotely on board with vacation time. And they're also traveling with their children, whether that's their 20-year-old children or their younger children doing, school online. So there's just an entire phenomenon, generational shift in how, we travel. And I think there's now a younger population that's traveling for longer versus the 1 week cruise, because we only have 2 weeks off a year in the United States, or 3 weeks off a year if we're lucky. And so that 1 week now becomes 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And so you have a lot of entrepreneurs who are listening in right now that have their own schedules. And so if you work remote online, you can work wherever you would like to. And so how wonderful it would be for you to work on board a ship and have your Wi-Fi, but also enjoying yourself, your mental health, your wellness, and your cultural enrichment all at the same time. So we're seeing longer journeys. I don't think that's going to go away. And then we're seeing products evolve. This is my thinking, and this is also our thinking at Windstar Cruises, because we've done a lot of conversations about where does Windstar go next. And what we're seeing is that there's a huge opportunity for us to not just be a cruise line, but to be the best way to experience a destination. We currently offer pre and post cruise packages. We offer air. So we become a one-stop shop service. So whether it's the travel advisors selling us, they're only working with us to book their air, to book their clients' hotel pre or post. So your client may be going to Rome, but they want to spend, instead of just 1 day in Rome, they want to arrive 4 days earlier and do the whole Rome experience before they get on board a ship. So we start packaging up these experiences, and we can deliver this comprehensive experience for their clients and our guests. And I think that's where the cruise industry is going. You have some cruise brands that are creating a city on board and don't want to get the guests off the ship. I think where the small ship brands are going, and there's going to be a lot more small ship cruise brands coming into play, we have an opportunity to deliver an entire experience beyond cruise, because we become destination experts. We know how to travel, let's say in the French Polynesian region. So once you go to Tahiti, you want overwater bungalows along with the cruise experience and island hopping, which can become cumbersome if you're not on a cruise. So, Tahiti, we know, is just an 8-hour direct flight from LA. Once you get there, you want to see the most of it. It's a place that you kind of go once or twice in your lifetime. A lot of people go more than that because they realize how easy it is to access. From LA, it's actually closer to go to Tahiti than it is to go to Europe. But people don't realize that. And I think that's where we're heading. I think that's our vision for the future at Windstar Cruises, to be the best way to see a destination and not just be a cruise line. And I'm excited for that.
Yeah, I am too. I waited till a little bit later in life when, I could pay for my vacation, not on a credit card, but not worry about it either. So
yes,
probably taken about 12 cruises in my lifetime. So it's definitely something I enjoy. So it's excited for this conversation. Janet, if our audience wants to get in touch with you or learn more about Windstar Cruises, how do they reach you?
So I am on LinkedIn. Please connect with me on LinkedIn and windstarcruises.com. It's easy to find us, windstarcruises.com, and let's connect on LinkedIn. I'm pretty responsive, so I look forward to talking and chatting with anybody more about anything that we've discussed here during this forum. And I'm, again, very grateful, Angela, for the invite.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for listening to Empower Her Money podcast. I am grateful for you. Please make sure to leave us a 5-star review, like this podcast, share it, subscribe, and let's keep teaching others how to take control and be empowered with their finances.